Yes, Jonathan.
Vice Mayor, can you hear us? We hear you. We hear you.
Thank you, and now I hear you.
Okay, good news. We'll explain all that in a moment. I just want to give the audience a heads up. We're not calling the meeting to order yet, just another minute or two. But, what? No, I just wanted to tell you, if you plan to speak, we have speaker cards in the back there, and you can fill a speaker card out with the, see, Vanna over there is showing you where the cards are. And you can fill it out with the agenda item that you want to speak about. Thank you. Resume having fun. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Los Altos City Council meeting of Tuesday, October 10th. So I've called the meeting to order, and City Clerk, I'm going to let you establish quorum.
Councilmember Daly.
Here.
Councilmember Fliger.
Here.
Councilmember Liang.
Here.
Vice Mayor Weinberg.
Here.
Mayor Meadows.
Here. And with that, let me read an explanation of the Vice Mayor's remote participation and, well, not really an explanation, but just the legal wording. So before we start, I would like to reflect in the minutes that pursuant to California Government Code Section 54953, Vice Mayor Jonathan Weinberg will participate in the meeting via video conference. The video conference location has been identified in the notice for this meeting. Vice Mayor Weinberg, can you confirm with us that you can hear the proceedings, have a copy of the agenda, and attest that you have posted the agenda properly at your location?
Yes to all three.
Is your location publicly accessible?
Yes, it is, and for anyone who would like to join me, I am at a table outside of a coffee shop called The Roasted Bean by the hallway going towards the theater at the Mirage Hotel and Casino, kind of across the way from Nectar Bath Treats. It is a publicly accessible area, and people are walking by and it's a bit noisy, so I apologize for any ambient noise.
All right, we'll be right over. And has anyone joined you?
No one has joined me, but I am in a very public location and people are continuously walking by, but nobody has stopped to pay any attention.
Okay, and will you let us know if anyone joins you?
Yes,
All right, so if a magician pops up in the background or something, or a showgirl, you'll alert us to that.
yes.
All right, thank you very much.
I wonder how you post the agenda 24 hours in advance. Like,
No, it's been posted. It was, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to lead us in the pledge this evening. Please stand and join me. Stand if you're able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Vice Mayor, are you waving a flag there?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. We had no closed session this evening, so we have nothing to report out on that. Changes to the order of the agenda, I actually want to suggest one right off the bat. I would like to move the special items in front of public comments on items not on the agenda. We have a number of important special items tonight. And so what I'd like to suggest for those of you who are here for the special items, and if you stay for all of them, then we'll take a couple minutes at the end where you can then leave. But I think it would work out best if everyone stayed for these first three special items, and then I'll tell you when we've reached the end. So my proposal is to move special items next before public comments on items not on the agenda. Are my colleagues okay with that?
yes.
All right, thank you. And are there any other changes to public comments to the order of the agenda? No. Okay. So with that, I'm going to move forward to the special items. And thank you all who are here tonight for a number of these items. Firstly, though, I want to make a brief statement to acknowledge that many in our community have friends, family, or colleagues impacted by the horrifying attacks in Israel. Words are not sufficient, but I want to convey that our thoughts are with all those affected by the violence. Let's just take a moment to contemplate. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to move on to a proclamation recognizing, oops, sound like I was echoing a little bit, maybe it's okay. A proclamation recognizing the week of October 7th through 15th as Compassion Week. And we have Ms. Texler who will receive this, but I'm going to read it from up here. And then I think if council wants to go down for a joint photo op since we're all in support of Compassion Week, but let me read through the proclamation. So whereas Compassion Week brings people of all ages and abilities together for a week in October to engage in acts of service and build a strong, compassionate, and empathetic community. And whereas since its inception by the Los Altos United Methodist Church in 2012, over 21,000 volunteers have participated in Compassion Week activities, supporting over 85 nonprofits. Through volunteer opportunities, community participants expand their understanding of local and global needs. Compassion Week 2023 is operated in partnership with multiple local faith communities, the Los Altos Mountain View Community Foundation, County of Santa Clara Supervisor Joe Simidian, and other organizations. Compassion Week in Los Altos offers employees time off to participate in volunteer opportunities, including making paracord bracelets for U.S. military personnel, downtown cleanup, preparing dinner at a homeless shelter, assembling hygiene kits for homeless neighbors, and cleaning kits for refugee families. Los Altos employee volunteers include staff in the police department, executive team and city manager's office, public works, human resources, and finance. Now, therefore, I, Mayor of the City of Los Altos, and on behalf of the entire Los Altos City Council, do declare the week of October 17th through 15th as Compassion Week 2023, and we invite all residents to unite together in service to our community, and we appreciate volunteers whose efforts strengthen our city and improve the lives of our neighbors. So Laura Texler's here to receive this on behalf of Los Altos Mountain View Community Foundation, and so why don't we join her for a photo op. Did they tell you photo op? I'll come down. I'm ready. You're ready. I'll get this. Maybe we should stand in front here so Tom is in the picture. Inclusive. Now you're here. Ready? Everybody? 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Thank you. We're now going to move on to the proclamation recognizing Hispanic Heritage Month. And joining me in giving that presentation is Lindsay Hernandez. And I'll meet you down here. And do we have a mic down there? Okay, good, perfect. We won't be facing the audience then. Are you an engineer? All right, so I'm going to start out the proclamation, and you'll hear what Lindsay's going to do with it. Whereas, can everybody hear? Let me just make sure. Okay, all right. Whereas, every year from September 15th to October 15th, Americans celebrate National Hispanic Heritage Month by recognizing the history, heritage, and contributions of Hispanics and Latinos to our community and nation.
Considerando que cada año de 15 de septiembre al 15 de octubre, los estadounidenses celebran la fiesta nacional hispana, mes de la herencia reconociendo la historia, la herencia y las contribuciones de los hispanos y latinos a nuestra comunidad y nación.
Whereas observation of Hispanic Heritage Week started in 1968 under President Lyndon B. Johnson and was later extended to a 30-day celebration by President Ronald Reagan.
Considerando que la celebración de la Semana de la Herencia Hispana comenzó en 1968 bajo el presidente Lyndon B. Johnson y posteriormente el presidente Ronald Reagan lo extendió a una celebración de 30 días.
Whereas Hispanics and Latinos are California's largest ethnic groups with diverse roots throughout the Americas, indigenous communities of Latin America and Africa, and beyond.
Considerando que los hispanos y latinos son el grupo étnico más grande de California, con raíces diversas en todo el continente americano, comunidades indígenas de América Latina y África, y más allá.
Whereas Hispanic and Latino Americans have helped shape our society, economy, culture, and values, and have been integral to the prosperity and enrichment of Los Altos, our state, and our country.
Considerando que los hispanos y latinoamericanos han ayudado a dar forma a nuestra sociedad, economía, cultura y valores y han sido parte integral de la prosperidad y el enriquecimiento de los Altos, nuestro estado y país.
Whereas Hispanic Heritage Month allows us to honor and celebrate the key leadership roles and accomplishments of Hispanics and Latinos in our community in different professions and sectors and at all levels of government.
Por lo que el mes de la herencia hispana nos permite honrar y celebrar los roles clave de liderazgo y logros de los hispanos y latinos en nuestra comunidad y diferentes profesiones y sectores y en todos los niveles del gobierno.
Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Sally Meadows, Mayor of the City of Los Altos, and on behalf of the entire Los Altos City Council, do hereby proclaim September 15th through October 15th, 2023, as Hispanic Heritage Month.
Por lo tanto, se resuelve que yo, Sally Meadows, alcaldesa de la ciudad de Los Altos, y en el nombre de todo el ayuntamiento de Los Altos, por la presente proclamo el 15 de septiembre al 15 de octubre como mes de la herencia hispana.
So now, Lindsay, I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourself, tell us what school you're at, what year, and your aspirations for the future.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lindsay Hernandez. I am a senior in Los Altos High School right now. I am a first-generation Latina student, and my aspirations for the future is go into criminal justice, everything that my parents have ever wanted to be, and just make them proud.
I invited Lindsay here tonight. This is actually the first time we've met, but I've been involved with the nonprofit Mentor Tutor Connection for many years before joining City Council. And so I too have worked with many of the young people in the program, and I know what wonderful things they do and how wonderful the program is. So Lindsay, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We have a fancy copy of the proclamation for you, and it's missing the gold. We need the bling. I'll get it for you. and if you want to leave this with me, I can also make a proclamation of it in both languages. So do you want a photo with the proclamation, despite no bling? All right. Oh, just one more. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Lindsay. I will, if you give me this, then I'll get both of these to you through Ann. Thank you so much. Our last special item is also very special in a different kind of way. We're doing I think the first public swearing-in ceremony for our incoming commissioners, and I'm going to turn it over to our city clerk to handle that.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, at the regular meeting of September 26, 2023, the City Council appointed several Los Altos residents to various commissions and a committee for the City of Los Altos, and those appointees will be receiving their oath of office tonight. And as I call your name, if you could come and stand right here facing council, and I'll meet you over there in just a moment. The first is Wesley Helmholtz. He was appointed to Complete Streets Commission. Scott Pietka for Complete Streets Commission. Deepak Jain, Financial Commission. Jesse Zhang, Financial Commission. Michelle Morris, Library Commission. Sumita Chandra, Joint Community Volunteer Service Awards Committee. That's a mouthful. And Chris Olson, Senior Commission.
I'm going to clap. You may join me.
Just a moment. Okay, so if I could have everybody raise their right hand and repeat after me.
You want? I know. She's saying that the cameras are
Oh,
on the other.
that's true. Why don't we move this way where you are all standing? If you guys can come right over here. And just all stand in a group right over this way facing me. So sorry, their backs are going to be turned to council.
That's okay. You're fine. That's all right.
So I'm going to have
We are.
everyone raise your hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
Deepak Jain.
Wesley Helmholtz. Scott Pietka.
Michelle Morris. Sumita Chandra. Chris Olson.
Now repeat after me. Do solemnly swear
Do
solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
That
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance
and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations.
Okay, so that unfortunately that wraps up our special items because they were all very special. So, but it is a good time if you want to leave. You don't have to leave. You can stay with us the whole evening. But I'm going to give you a moment or two while folks clear out of the room because I think most people will want to leave.
Thank you, Michelle.
I know, I'm surprised there's not more people. Is he in Vegas? Oh.
All right, thank you all. We're going to move forward to public comments on items not on the agenda. First, I do want to just inform everyone that Tonight, as with every night, we will be following the Los Altos Municipal Code, Chapter 2.05, Section 2.05010, Public Rules for Meeting Conduct. All right, so I have, I believe, just two for public comments, not on the agenda, and I see a couple hands online. So it looks like I have another one. Is what number? Well, give it to, yeah, Anthony will take care of it. It's consent, right? Yeah, okay. All right, so I have two speaker cards for public comments not on the agenda. I'm going to give speakers 2 minutes, since we potentially have a long list of speakers for some of the other items. So we'll do 2 minutes. We're going to start out with TT Ramgopal, and we'll be followed by Lei Yuan. So,
Hi, my name is TT Ramgopal. Good evening, Mayor Meadows and the council members. I also wanted to congratulate all the people who just got sworn in, some friends in the group, so you're in good hands. I wanted to bring to your attention the AT&T's proposal to launch a 5G RF antenna right at the corner of my property on Eleanor Avenue and likely in other spots within Los Altos as well. While we appreciate the increased coverage from this and all of us rely on cell phones, I work on cell phones myself. I also do know that there are considerations that haven't been met. For example, the pole that they plan to install it on, it's no longer going to be within the same height. It's going to be on top of it, which is not part of what we expected. Also, the ordinance states that within 500 feet of residential areas, you shouldn't be putting these devices if there are other options. And clearly, there are other public areas which are not as densely populated as Eleanor Avenue or any other part of Los Altos. And long-term effects of having this RF right in your backyard or in my front yard is unknown. And these are very powerful, waves generated, and the study is still ongoing. So I do think that it needs further evaluation and consideration before AT&T is allowed to proceed. The notice period was rather short for us to comment. I've sent in my comments, I haven't heard back, but I'd appreciate if you could look into this matter for the safety of all the citizens of Los Altos, which is a great community, which I'm proud to be part of. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Ramgopal. And next, Lei Yuan.
Oh, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. Should I hand out little prints that I prepared?
Yes, you can.
You can, but your clock is running, so yeah,
okay.
he'll
Okay.
do that for you, so you can keep talking.
Can we stop
Okay,
the clock
okay.
till we all get it? Can we please stop
Okay,
the
yeah.
clock?
My name is Lei Yuan, and I live in 96 Eleanor Avenue. I'm neighbor of TT, and I came here to speak on the same issue about new AT&T cell nodes on 98 Eleanor Avenue. And my, I guess to make short, I, of course, have great concern, mostly also the noise that was generated. And so I think I also researched the efforts from City Council for the past few years and the effort and amendment to the ordinance, which says applicants should investigate within 500 feet of the original proposed location to a preferred location than less preferred. So residential areas, single homes are less preferred area compared to government commercial sites. And for this particular site, you draw a circle 500 radius, which will reach very far to the soccer field or the parking lot of our community center. So I think it's worthwhile to reconsider relocating this location. by all means to reduce the number of homes that will get affected by this. And I think, so I appreciate that, mostly. And also, on top of that, I do have 16 homeowners. I have signed my support for the city to reconsider this particular
Thank
issue.
you, Ms. Yuen. You can leave Mr. Carnesecca will get the signatures, and I will point out, and I didn't say this at the beginning, but for public comments on items not on the agenda, that by law, the city council is unable to discuss or take action on issues presented during this comment period. And this is according to the state law known as the Brown Act, because items must first be noted on the agenda before any discussion or action. But thank you. We have your materials. I appreciate you preparing them. Okay, City Clerk, I think no other speakers in for comments not on the agenda, okay? So we'll move to the online speakers.
Roberta Phillips?
Hi, good evening. I assume you can hear me.
Yes.
Yes, okay, great. So I just wanted to mention that the videotape of the last city council meeting has some pretty big gaps in it. And I actually got calls from friends of mine that said, what's going on? We can't hear this section, we can't hear that section. So I think it's really important that people be able to participate. Sometimes they can't attend that evening and they are looking at it for the first time, or they want to get the information correct as to actually what happened or what somebody said. So they go back and look at the tape. So I certainly hope that you can, fix the technical difficulties so that this does not occur again. I think it's important that people be able to look at the video and have it complete. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips.
The next speaker is Joe Beninato.
Yes, hi. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for the time. I'm speaking as a resident, not as a commissioner. I've noticed a trend, and perhaps this has been going on for a long time and I wasn't aware of it, but I've experienced this firsthand and seen it happen with others, where people in the community feel it's completely appropriate to walk up to an elected official or an appointed official or staff or anywhere else, even at a social event or in grocery store, and just let them have it in terms of whatever issue it is that they're worried about or concerned about. And of course, elected officials and others need to have thick skin when it comes to criticism, but there's a time and a place for that to occur. And I would argue that at a social event or in the grocery store may not be the best place to do that. Elected officials are people too, and they do have social lives and they like to enjoy themselves when they go out. And I think insults and expressing concern over a policy in some of those settings may not be appropriate. It's okay to disagree. We're not all going to agree on every topic, but I think finding the right time and a place to talk to someone and share your concerns is really the right way to go. Our elected officials and staff and others are extremely approachable, extremely available to the public. And I would just encourage people, if you do have a concern, and I may be guilty of this from time to time as well, try and find the right way to express that concern to somebody. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Beninato.
The next speaker is Sander Vonk.
Hello, thank you. First of all, congratulations to everyone who was sworn in tonight. Also, good evening. I'm the Vice Chair of the Youth Commission, but I'm also here tonight just in my own capacity to speak. I was particularly worried about the designation of ad hoc subcommittees in our new commission handbook. While their 1 year limit doesn't really affect us, given that our terms are shorter than most and we naturally have a higher turnover rate than average. The second paragraph of the section titled Ad hoc Subcommittees on page 9, as it continues into page 10, says that, quote, commission members currently serving on an ad hoc subcommittee are not eligible to serve on another ad hoc subcommittee simultaneously. I'm sure this is also the case for some other commissions, but I found this point particularly worrisome as it might affect our ability to meaningfully and efficiently progress on our goals. Though it seems to potentially differ from commission to commission, in our experience, commissioners take on tasks based on what they have the time and resources to commit to. This means that like throughout the year, how much time commissioners have to dedicate toward the commission waxes and wanes pretty significantly. As a result, at some points in the year, it's necessary to have overlap between our subcommittees in order to make meaningful progress toward our goals. For example, last year, Arthi and myself served, Vice Chair and Chair, served on both like publicity and special events subcommittees. We like to compartmentalize and label specific goal-oriented subcommittees, which also helps with structure and getting stuff done. The structure also makes it extremely difficult to meaningfully report back to our main meetings. I understand the restrictions on discussion based on public comments in our meetings, but I was wondering if there's any possibility, probability, or plan in place for a change in this definition. In its current form, I believe it will make it incredibly hard for our commission to make the impact we set out to have, and instead we're just forced to make the best of a fairly inhospitable structure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vonk. Okay, that seems to be all our comments on public comments not on the agenda, so we will close that and move on to the consent calendar. So I will ask my colleagues if they would like to ask for any clarifications, pull any items. Can I ask you if you're gonna have conversations in the chambers? It's just a little distracting. Sorry. So would any of my colleagues care to chime in on the consent calendar? Councilmember Liang.
I'd like to pull items 3 and 4, agenda items.
Okay. Do any other council members want to pull 1 or 2 or 5? No, 5 is discussion. Never mind. 1 or 2? No. Okay. So I'm going to look for a motion, but first let me say where I'm going to put items 3 and 4. I'm just going to move them to the end of the agenda, so we'll go through the discussion items 5 and 6, and then we'll take up 3 and 4. All right, so can I have a motion on items 1 and 2? Oh, yes, thank you. Excellent point. So I do have, so this is the opportunity for the public to comment on any of the consent items, whether they're pulled or not. And so I have 2 cards, which appear to be for item number 4. Now, again, let me clarify that when you speak on them now, because we're covering the consent calendar, you do not speak on them again. So now is the time to speak on items 1, 2, 3, or 4. So I have 3 speaker cards in chambers, and there's a couple online. So we're going to do 2 minutes again, City Clerk. And so we're going to start with Shireen Cooper, will go first, followed by Jerry Rice, and Janine Valadez will be our last speaker in chambers. So, Shireen.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Shireen Cooper, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself, my family, and my 7 neighbors on Berry Avenue. We are the gang of 8, as you put it, that adjoins the Rancho Shopping Center. We wrote a letter collectively yesterday, which I'd like to read out. Dear council members, as the residents and property owners of the 8 houses on Berry Avenue that border Rancho Shopping Center, we are writing a follow-up to our letter of September 18th, 2023. At this time, we request that the council review and modify, as necessary, the objective design standards to include legally allowed criteria that seek to protect our access to direct sunlight, including in the afternoons in December, and prevent sightlines that impact our privacy. As our elected representatives, we hope the council members will be our advocates in our shared quest for responsible development. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. Next is Jerry Rice. Not the Jerry Rice, another the Jerry Rice. Yes.
Yes, I'm Jerry Rice. I'm a 35-year resident and homeowner in Los Altos. My wife and my son went to school. Well, my son went to school here, and I wanted to. I know I'm a bit late coming to this, but with the pandemic and all these, there's been too many things going on. But essentially, I don't think that it's good for the city to buy into these state mandates and just accept them passively. And I don't think it's good for the community. It appears the state has the idea of driving down real estate prices to help have more affordable housing throughout the state, which on one level that's a noble idea, but I'm not sure that it's even constitutional under the U.S. Constitution. I'm not an attorney, but I'd like to see the city through maybe resident volunteers on whatever ad hoc committees or whatever, look into what other cities around the state may be doing and potentially look at some sort of a group where cities unite together and see what can be done to push back on these mandates. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Ms. Valadez.
Hello, Council. I'm a park commissioner. I'm speaking as a member of the public tonight. I'm speaking on the item 3, which is the letter of support that you folks wrote for the Stanford Community Update. As a Stanford alum and one-time resident at that university, I've always stayed in touch with the Stanford Community Plan Update because even back in the 80s and the 70s, it was really hard to find housing as a student and then later as a graduate. So specifically, I'll just go ahead and read this. The development and revision of the Stanford Community Plan Update has been a long and sometimes contentious process. In general, I support the content of your letter with a couple of significant exceptions. First, the opening paragraph refers to quote unquote open space, yet no supporting bullet shows support to protect it. I think the council should consider amplifying or asserting explicitly the longevity of the academic growth boundary, or AGB, and encourage, if not demand, that Stanford constrain all future development for the next 99 years to within the existing AGB. And by the way, I'm not asking you to do anything that the study doesn't already try to assert. I just really would like you to also join in that chorus to explicitly state that. But in fact, as a result, I object to your expectation as written in the letter to promote development, quote unquote, on contiguous Stanford lands. That's too strong a reference to the open spaces above Stanford as potential for development. So I think that I would prefer that we be more in line with what the study is recommending. Secondly, I wonder why council specifies a demand in one of the bullets that Stanford prevent spillover, your words, into surrounding communities. I think there are many benefits for that spillover, which we've seen up to date with other developments.
Thank you, Ms. Valdez. Okay, we have some speakers online. City Clerk.
Roberta Phillips.
Hi, good evening again. So on agenda item number 4 on the housing element, I have 2 small concerns. One is in 14.44.010, which the maintenance and repair in the CD district was redlined out. And I know a lot of us in the community currently use Ritmeyer, the foreign motor for our repair, and I know that they can probably stay, but losing that service in our town would really not be that great. I don't think we're so fancy schmancy that we don't want to allow, auto repair. in our town. If we needed to have repairs done, I know that I would need to drive to Belmont or other communities and travel a lot further in order to get a car repair done. So I hope that you will do, put it back in. The second thing is, I do not understand why you have the wireless in the housing element. I don't know if HCD requires that or not, but it just doesn't seem like it's the right place. And I think that these are minor changes. I know I read the questions and answers, and they said this would delay this process, but it would only delay it by 2 weeks until your next meeting. And I think it's worthwhile getting it right, because it's something we're going to have to live with for at least the next 8 years and probably the next 25 years. So I hope that you will consider these changes, and thank you again.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips.
The next speaker is Nancy Martin.
Hello, good evening. My name is Nancy Martin, and I've lived in Los Altos for 30 years. I agree with Councilwoman Lynette Ng on pulling agenda item 4. It's just, this is too important to adopt tonight. There's so much in this item. I guess the thing that bothers me the most, of course, is Rancho, is the lack of setbacks, is getting rid of the Florida area ratio, bulk and mass, which is going to end up looking like downtown is, and that's just, it's so heartbreaking. The last thing we want is this giant conglomerate put up that goes from one end of the street to the other with no setbacks. And it's not just impacting the neighbors around it, it's impacting the whole community. People are mourning the loss of our beautiful shopping centers. So if we're going to lose some of them, and I'm going to make sure Rancho is not one of them if it's the last thing I do, but if we have to lose any of them, they should be done well, they should have setbacks. There is always another way, and we need to keep looking instead of just saying, it's all right, go ahead, it's, it has to be done. It doesn't. There's other ways. And I urge the council to please help us find other ways to do this instead of just adopting all of these items. So that is my request, and I hope that you'll take it to heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Next speaker is Tom Ferry. Mr. Ferry, you're going to need to unmute.
Got it. Sorry. Hi. Good evening to the council. My name is Tom Ferry, and I'm a Los Altos resident. My comments are also about item number 4. I encourage the council members to spend more time to more carefully consider really the best language for the zoning ordinance text amendments. And I have 2 points about the changes to bring up. First, I think it is imperative that the language regarding FAR floor area ratio, setbacks, building height, and the CN zones be clear, concise, and reflect not only the needs of increased housing and the state requirements, but also the impact on the Los Altos residents, especially those near Rancho and Woodland Plaza Lucky. My experience is that maybe most residents I've talked to have very little knowledge of the housing element requirements, the proposed zoning changes, and the impact on residents. We've only recently started to see a few more residents become aware of the situation, and more time, even a couple of weeks, should be taken to hear from your constituents. Second, I think the proposed changes in 14.80.060, removing the city council from decisions on cell phone equipment location, should not be adopted. 5G equipment location decisions are really important to many residents. I think we've already heard from one speaker about that, and should be ultimately decided by the council, who are elected by residents, and not just get the decision by the volunteers who serve on the Planning Commission. I believe the Planning Commission is a great resource to make recommendations to the council, but that the council should make the final decisions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ferry. Okay, so that closes public comment on consent items. When we get to number 3 and number 4 at the end of the agenda, just as a reminder, we won't be taking the comment then because we took it now. All right, so Councilmember Daley, do you need anything? Okay, just want, you have enough water. Okay, all right. So let's move on to our discussion items. Number 5, who will?
Don't we have a motion on the consent?
Oh, did we? Oh, you're right. Sorry. We do need a motion on the consent. So items 1 and 2.
So moved, Mayor. I'll be glad to second, Mayor.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Daley?
Yes.
Councilmember Fliger?
Yes.
Councilmember Liang?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Weinberg?
Yes.
Mayor Meadows?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And my apologies, I got wrapped up in the comments. Okay, so now we will move on to the discussion items. And number 5. This is being presented by Mr. Carnesecca.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. It's great to be with you tonight. Anthony Carnesecca, Assistant to the City Manager. I'm going to be presenting some changes to our special events ordinance for your consideration. So there's some identified issues that really led to city staff wanting to bring this forward to City Council for consideration. The existing definition within the municipal code is unclear and has led to some events where the city has bared financial and resource burden for events that haven't qualified as special events previously. And the application fees for special events are not aligned with neighboring jurisdictions, as you saw in the staff report that staff created. So the proposed solutions, it's threefold. Amend the Los Altos Municipal Code 9.25 special events section. I'll get into the specifics on that. Alter the application fee structure to charge differently for for-profit and nonprofit applicants, similarly to some neighboring jurisdictions. And then lower the application fee for all special events. So the history of special events, Los Altos Municipal Code 9.25 was adopted in March 2007. There have been no changes to this code section in the last 15 years for special events. And so in light of that, under the recent or the issues addressed before, city staff felt it was important to bring it forward for council. So the current status of special events. There have been 23 applications for special events in 2023. We're in October, so that number could go up depending on upcoming special events. They vary greatly in length, size, attendance, and location. So as an example, Grant Park Concert, Farmers Market where they shut down State Street once a week, or Fine Art in the Park where they shut down Lincoln Park for an entire weekend. So special events kind of vary across the board, and there's a whole list of them on the city website. So what is a special event? It's an organized parade or assembly in the public right-of-way, or an organized activity of 150 or more persons at one location. These examples that you see on the screen before you are actually from the municipal code. They're called out as examples of what a special event would be considered. And under the proposed changes tonight, what will be a special event? It will still be an organized parade or assembly in the public right-of-way. It will still be an organized activity of 150 or more persons at one location. Or the new section that staff has added for your consideration, which is organized activity on public or private property, which may generate a crowd that would interfere with normal traffic or access for pedestrians or vehicles. So this is a new code section that was gently borrowed from a neighboring jurisdiction's definition for special events that city staff feels would be comfortable and really allow us to capture more events that could potentially cause interference with normal traffic or access on the sidewalk or the public right-of-way, depending on what the circumstance is. And then you can see at the bottom that block parties have been crossed out as an example, which I'll touch on right now. So block party has been broken out into its own section within this municipal code area. So in 9.25, we now have special events and block parties. Previously, those were one and the same. City staff feels comfortable dividing those out because Those are really two unique situations, a block party and a special event. And so this is the definition that has been provided by staff. So the changes, I went over a number of them, but this is just a bullet point list of all the changes to the code. We did add the new bullet point for the definition that will incorporate more events moving forward. We removed a number of unnecessary language points to try and make the code section a little more coherent. There were points where I think there were 20 bullet points within that code section, and so we tried to tighten it up a little bit so it made it a little more clear moving forward. There was previously different response times for different types of events. City staff feels comfortable having a uniform standard response time for all special events moving forward. And we have removed some of the subjective language regarding expressive activity, which will help protect the city if there is any expressive activity that would like to be presented to the city. We have condensed the application requirements for the future special events. Like we talked about with the number of bullet points, we've taken sections from previous bullet points and tried to make it as clear and concise as possible moving forward, breaking the block party into its own section. And we've changed the name of sponsored special events to be a little more accurate. I believe previously it didn't indicate the percentage of sponsorship, and now moving forward it will be fully and partial sponsorship. So for the existing fee schedule, this is the current application fees and staff costs for events. So with a new or an ongoing event, an applicant must pay this initial application fee for city staff to review the application, and then they will pay the full charge of staff costs for a new or ongoing event. Moving forward, this is the proposed fee schedule. What it says here is that for-profit and nonprofit have been broken off into separate sections in new and ongoing events. But moving forward, the application fee will be lowered. But at the same time, it's important to note all of these event applicants will need to pay the full charge of staff costs. So city staff is not recommending that we will receive any less funds for these events moving forward. We will still receive the full charge of staff costs. So if there are any costs incurred by the police department, public works department, parks and rec team, or anyone from city staff, those charges will be received by the city from the applicant. And now I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, so do any of my colleagues have questions? Councilmember Liang, why don't you start us off?
If we have an increase of events, I'm sure it's going to impact the various departments we have in our city, such as law enforcement, municipal service. What outreach has been conducted from these departments? Because I didn't see any feedback or any information as to understanding whether they are, have adequate staffing if events should increase.
So city staff did connect with other departments, and we have tried to make accommodations moving forward. So if there is an influx of special events, we are prepared to incur that cost on the applicant for the new special events and then cover the costs of whichever staff time will be needed.
So help me understand when you say the actual costs and services, so that would be like the police department. It's hard to see from this report or help people understand what the full cost of having an event is. I don't see any information regarding these costs. Can you explain why?
I apologize if it wasn't clear. City staff does recognize that if there is an event, the city staff will calculate the billable hours for each individual. So from the police department, it will be a billable timesheet, if you will, of the number of hours, the cost per hour for that employee, and then that cost will be then handed over to the applicant to pay for it moving forward.
So if it's not fully, so suppose I'm going to use a hypothetical. Mm-hmm. So if there is a need for a department and yet they have to dip into overtime hours, does that mean we're still passing on the costs of overtime as well? And so,
Correct. So it would be the cost of billable hours. So if we are required to have individuals working overtime, we would let the applicant know beforehand. So if there was an event on an evening where we wouldn't have adequate staffing at that time, we would let the applicant know beforehand with a cost estimate broken down of what the cost would look like, pass that on to the applicant, and then the applicant would be able to make the determination whether they want to proceed or not. And then once they want to proceed with the event, afterwards, we would provide them with that receipt showing them how much they need to pay for that overtime of staff.
so they get billed after for the actual costs in addition to their application fee. Is that how we do it now as well?
So the way that we've historically done it is that there's an application fee that's presented to staff with the application. We then create the estimate of the cost, provide that to the applicant. The applicant will then say, yes, we're okay proceeding. And then we will provide the billable hours afterwards for the cost. And we do that in case there's any scenarios where city staff has to clean up after the event. It really protects us moving forward, so we can provide that total amount for cost recovery back to the city, so we don't lose any money at a special event.
Is there any concern, well, my concern, or how would you account for a lack of a clear standard? Because like you said, we account for overtime. So if we account for overtime, there's not a clear standard as to how much the same event might cost the week before. Like, I'm going to use farmers market, for example, right? If they come in with the application thinking, okay, we can bank on the same amount that we spent last week, but then come the 5th week, oh, we have to account for overtime. And yet they didn't go to their board or whatever, or budget for the change in the amount that's going to be coming back in a bill. How is that a consistent standard?
So for recurring events, we work with the organization well in advance of it, and then we ultimately prepare our staff that it will be a weekly requirement. So Farmers Market is a great example where we know every Thursday or every Wednesday, I think it is, that Rick gets to post the signs. And then on Thursday, we have the same officers doing the same tasks every week. So we understand that that is the cost set moving forward. I don't know that we've really had any issues where we've run into overtime on recurring events where we're well prepared, and we know pretty much exactly what we're doing every week.
So in one of the bullet points, or one of the things you advertised or emphasize, was create uniforms. The agency they hire is not meeting the same response time as if our own departments have that.
I think that's kind of a twofold question. I think the response time is standardized, so it actually makes it easier, I think, in staff's opinion, that 60 calendar days we have to receive that application. Then we have the pre-meeting with the police department or any department that would be necessary. And if they're not comfortable moving forward, then we wouldn't sign off on it. So we always make sure that the police department is comfortable with the direction that we're heading moving forward with all special events. So we would have that meeting, and if it was necessary that they needed to have private security or some other agency, I have full confidence that our police department would be able to express any concerns they might have in that meeting with the applicant as well as fellow city staff.
So,
Go ahead, City Attorney, if you can help.
And also, these
Yeah.
special event permits, they require the permittee, the event sponsor, to have insurance and also to indemnify and hold harmless the city. So we would be covered.
okay. I guess my question is, because the report fails to help individuals or the general public understand actual costs that are going to be covered, I mean, how are we going to educate the public on how much actual costs are? Like, if they want to host an event, because if currently applicants are paying for police and maintenance fees, which they get billed separately, if people are not paying now, or are not, we're not able to collect the fees now, how can we enforce payment for these services or ensure payment of these services?
So in
after
that,
we pass this?
in the application form, they do sign that they will pay all fees incurred by the city. And like I mentioned before, ultimately, we do provide that cost estimate in advance. So if someone comes forward 60 days before an event, shows an application where they're shutting down a significant amount of streets, we would talk with our police department, our public works department, get those estimates in place, present it to an individual, and they would have time before the event to make a decision whether or not they feel comfortable moving forward. Ultimately, though, what's presented before council today for consideration wouldn't change that fact. So if the existing policy was in place, applicants would still need to pay more money up front and then the same amount on the back end for staff costs. So I think ultimately what's presented before council would actually make it so applicants would better understand or pay less upfront for the application, but they would still pay that full staff cost.
Okay, I guess because I don't, based on the information in front of me, I'm not understanding it to the fullest. So give me an example. Let's go with farmer's market, like you said. How much is their cost today? And so they can understand how much it'll cost after this ordinance passes, and how much will it cost for them next year?
So they would ultimately, if you go to page 3 of the staff report, the only thing that would change is they would not be paying $1,152.10 for an ongoing event application fee. They would be paying a nonprofit ongoing event application fee of $150, but they would still be paying the full staff costs on the back end. So they would still be paying for shutting down of the streets, closure, any cleanup that was incurred, the cost to turn on the tree lights if that was incurred by the event. Everything would be the same other than just the application fee. So the cost that staff would charge the applicant to review what's being provided to us.
I guess it's not clear to me, so I'm concerned if there's any financial impacts, but you're saying that we're not gonna lose money when, right now, as I see it and presented to us, you have people who are, their application is 70 to 88% a range less. And with such a big change, I need to better understand the financial impacts and how this is gonna affect our budget. But I am not able to truly see that, because I don't see where you give me a clear example. So I really need a clear example.
So maybe some of our questions, if there are more, may help clarify, and then we'll go to public comment, and then we can ask for more. So Councilmember Daley, and don't let me forget to check on the vice mayor. Yep.
It's my understanding that staff thinks this is going to be a revenue neutral proposal because while the upfront fees per event may decline, the presumption is that with lower pricing, the demand for those events may increase, but that the incremental costs for staff are always going to be covered regardless. So is it staff's position that this is going to be most likely a fairly revenue neutral proposal?
That's the goal. I think ultimately we won't know until we see how many applications we get, but we can guarantee that some previous events that have not been deemed special events before will now be incorporated into this moving forward. So at the bare minimum, we know there will be events that have been occurring in Los Altos that will now fall into this category. And then another point to note is that really some of the events that are ongoing are sponsored events by the city. So we're not receiving that application fee from sponsored events. So it's a little tough to navigate that way.
Sorry, I was just hearing notes.
And I think most importantly, there's a cost recovery mechanism in the proposal, right? So while revenue may be uncertain, the cost recovery component of it is pretty reliable, right?
Correct.
Okay. And in fact, given that some events are currently not considered special events and are not charged through this mechanism, those events that are not currently special events but actually do carry these costs, we'll now have cost recovery on those as well. So actually what we're looking at is an improved cost recovery.
That would be the goal.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I can also add, I asked this today, when I was looking at the question and answers, that we're doing a cost fee study. And so I believe all these costs for services that we do those studies every few years. So we can make sure we're capturing all those costs.
And just one more point on that, Mayor. The events that take place are that are not deemed special events currently are often intensive on staff time, primarily police and streets. So it's not the application fee to staff that we're considering. It's as Councilmember Daley said, it's the recovery. So the unapproved events that take place are what put the strain on the departments and the cost on the department budgets.
All right, thank you. Okay, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Flagger, and then Vice Mayor, I'll come to you.
See what happens, Vice Mayor, when you're not here. I just slip into your spot. He's not.
He's
hearing
not
me.
moving.
I
I'm
know.
not sure. Maybe it's a
Vice
screensaver.
Actually, Mayor, we may want to pause for a second and see if we
Okay.
can get him back.
Yeah. We're just pausing to see if we can reconvene the Vice Mayor. I'm not sure when we lost him because he's looked like this for a while.
Well, we could just go on with the questions and discussion and then take public comment and see if he
All right,
comes back.
we'll carry on with questions, as sometimes it's helpful to hear all the questions, but, well, let's go ahead, Councilmember Flagger, with your question.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation, Mr. Carnesecca. I do have some questions about the draft because I want to make sure that I and others understand what it actually applies to. So I'm going to start with the definition of special event under the new number 4, where it says public areas. Does that include public property as well?
Yes.
Okay. And Mayor, later during the discussion, I'll make some suggested changes.
And can you tell us, if we can all give each other guideposts, I get some lost. Where were you on this?
So under the definition of special event on page 161 of the packet, it's also under section 9.25.010 definitions, and it's alphabetical, so at special event.
Got it.
And Mr. Carnesecca, looking at numbers 2 and 3 where it says 150, how did we arrive at that number? And I'm curious, let me do the follow-up. Let's say an applicant estimates 100. So they're gonna think, oh, my event doesn't fall under special event. How do we remedy that?
This was a number from 2007. So
Right,
this is,
I see that.
So I can't speak to why that number was in place, but I will say that that number has caused us to have issues with special events currently where they say they don't have 150 persons in one place at one time. They're spread out. And so we feel that number 4 would capture many of those events that could potentially obstruct or restrict access to sidewalks, public spaces, plazas. So it was our intent that number 4 would be able to capture the events that we feel would be special events without having the issue of adjusting the numbers, because I feel like if we choose 100 or more, people may come to us and say, I only had 99 people. I only had 98, so it's not a special event. So with having number 4, it allows us to capture those events that previously we couldn't.
Okay, so then it's even more important that we reconcile public place, public property, public areas, because we've used 3 different terms there. So we just need to make sure public areas, public place, public property are one of the same, or we include all 3. Then next question, is there a cost to host block parties?
So there is no cost to host a block party.
Okay. If the city, and you touched on this earlier, if the city is a co-host, is there a cost for that special event?
For a special event?
Right.
So all special events that are sponsored by the city are within the council. It's a separate resolution that's not before council tonight that governs what events are sponsored at. I think I changed the wording for it to either fully or half sponsored.
I saw that.
So it's much more clear what the sponsorship is that's being provided in a monetary sense, if you will.
So if we're half sponsors, let's say we are co-sponsoring with another entity, and would that entity need to submit an application and go through this process? Or the fact that, I get if we're the sole hosts, but if we're co-hosting, does the other entity or individual need to submit an application and go through this process?
I think it would probably need to submit an application. It could be done in conjunction with the city. So the city and the other organization could submit together to the city manager's office. So I'm thinking, for example, if Recreation was hosting a special event and it was Recreation and another organization, Recreation could submit that application to the city for review, and then we would review it with them and the external agency and discuss the sponsorship agreement based upon what's been outlined by council.
Okay. And I am thinking, so for example, we have the Veterans event on Veterans Day, and it's 4 co-hosts, the city being one of them, the city of Los Altos Hills, Town Crier, Chamber, Rotary, I guess that's 5. Would we need to go through this application process? We're one of 5.
I think, if I remember correctly, Veterans Day is a sponsored, a partially sponsored event, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
So I believe if it's a half sponsored, let's say, for example, it's a half sponsored event, and we determined that there was the other entities, then the other 50% could be, I think, broken up depending on what that looks like. Does that make sense?
No.
No. Okay. I think we're getting where I would need to see an application and understand what the event is, and then.
Right, and I just want to understand if for this real example that's happening in a month, would the city or one of the other 4 entities need to, and I'll tell you, and I can discuss it with my colleagues during discussion, I hope not, for this event, because we're a co-sponsor, one of 5, and it's at our Veterans Plaza. So I want to understand what the proposal is. If I want to propose a change to my colleagues, I know what I'm going to propose changing.
But the co-sponsors, that resolution's not before you tonight. So we really just need to stick with this ordinance. And so nothing will really change with this ordinance and the veterans event, if I understand that
And
correctly.
I believe it's also an ordinance, so it would take effect in 30 days. So that would be after the event.
But there's next year.
I know.
Right,
I'm
right.
just-
But I appreciate what the city attorney is saying. So
We're
the
trying to,
Veterans Day would not fall under this ordinance.
not, is my understanding, yes.
So the clear answer is there's an ordinance that outlines all city-sponsored events. If the event is not there, then the event would have to go through the special event application.
Okay.
If the city is a sponsor or co-sponsor, the city is going to complete that application.
Okay.
So nothing really changes for the veterans, right?
So we do need to look at the other ordinance. Okay.
I think council may want to, under future agenda items, ask us to bring back what events are currently sponsored or partially sponsored. That has not been reviewed in some time.
Yeah, that sounds good, because veterans may not even be on there.
Exactly.
Right,
Spelled
so.
out. And we want to add it to that one.
Yeah.
On cancellations, if an applicant wants to cancel their event, what provision provides for that? Not after the fact, not if there's force majeure or some, weather issue.
So you're imagining that an applicant has submitted an application, paid the fee. We are preparing for the event. I think the city manager or the city attorney could give advice on what a refund of fees would look like, because
And it's silent on that, so I think we need to
Well,
put that in
there's
there.
the section about refunds. If a permittee is unable to hold or conduct a use or activity, because of weather, they can get their fees back. So there
Can you
is a
please say where that is?
It's
9.25 110 refunds.
But that's different, city attorney. So in the event, so this is specifically saying if there's, weather issues or something beyond their control. I am saying if an applicant, for whatever reason, decides they're not going to move forward with the event.
So if they decide not to move forward with the event after it's been processed, the application fee has incurred staff time that will not be refunded, but actual charges would not be
Yeah.
costed to them.
The cost of services that weren't provided won't be charged, but I think the application review and processing would be.
There's no cutoff. Okay. That's something I think in discussion, maybe we need to be explicit in the section so people understand that. And then the last question for now, Mr. Carnesecca. On the appeals, so this is section 9.25.140. I'm trying to understand the timeline here, knowing what the application timeline looks like compared to this timeline. So for example, if someone who's affected by this event wants to file an appeal, should we ensure that the appeal is heard before the date of the scheduled event in the event that we don't know what the ruling would be by the city council? And I don't think this provides for that.
So you're envisioning a provision that would allow the city council to review it within that. So if an applicant applied 60 days beforehand, we have so many days to review and respond. I think that could be something that city council could add as provision if you would like. I would say that most special event permit applications we do receive well in advance of the event, especially when they're going to sink a significant amount of cost. And I will say, just as a note, I don't know that we deny special event permit applications on a regular basis. I think for the most part, we try to work with applicants, and we typically would adjust an event rather than flat out deny an application.
And just two things on that, just so I understand. So one, it's a person aggrieved, so it could be someone else, not necessarily the applicant.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, even though most special events, those applications would come in way in advance, currently the ordinance does say 60 days, right?
I do see
For the
that,
minimum.
correct, the 60
Okay.
days.
All right, thank you.
So-
And are you gonna clean up the service charge?
So just to be clear, you're asking if applicant denied by staff could appeal to council? So that would be under the general right to appeal. They'd have any decision that staff makes, the city manager, anyone can refer that to the council by filing an appeal with the city clerk within 5 days of the action.
Right, I'm looking at when the actual appeal would be heard, and based on how it's currently drafted, the hearing could occur after the scheduled event date. So I just want to make sure it's clear that we allow for expediting the appeal hearing to avoid that happening.
In 9.25.140.
Yeah,
I
and
think
then,
is
and also about the service charges, I mean, the city manager pointed it out, but it is under 925-100. It's the permit fees are non-refundable. So, anyway, that's.
And is that a legal requirement, city attorney, or is just that's how the ordinance is currently drafted? So if council majority or more wanted to change that, we could.
Well, we are trying to do cost recovery, so if we're not doing cost recovery and people submit and we spend time and money, I would be worried about gift of public funds if we're giving back money that we've already, time and
We've already
expense has
invested.
already, time, materials, and expenses have already gone into it, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so Councilmember Liang has given me a Oh, okay. I can go ahead. Okay, yes. Right. Okay, so Vice Mayor, I'm just going to check in with you and see if you have any questions. I realize you probably missed some of the questions that have been asked.
Thank you, Mayor. So I actually heard everything until someone said that I wasn't moving, and then everything went haywire on my computer for some reason. No, all my questions were answered by staff, and my questions to staff before the meeting, the ones that were published. But thank you.
All right, thank you, Vice Mayor. Did you want to go ahead, Councilmember Liang?
Did you have questions? Otherwise, I'll let you ask your questions.
Well, mine's just, I have one question. And it's kind of repetitive, but I just think it's important to understand. So let me just check and make sure my understanding is correct. And we've mentioned cost recovery many times. So, so I understand that's the goal. So this is not necessarily incenting an increase in events. It's simply taking ones that are kind of under the radar and saying, here's a process, and making the process level across all the events, the ones that are on the radar now, and adding the ones under the radar. And it enables staff to be, for us, again, the cost recovery. So we're not necessarily making any changes in the number of events. It's just capturing ones that have been sort of gratis almost, well, or free, I guess is another word for that. Would that be a fair way to describe it?
Yes.
All right.
I think that's it.
Okay, so that was my only question. So on to you, Councilmember Liang.
Okay, to me, there's still a lot of things are not clear. So give me an example of, like, when someone puts in and they said permit fees are not refundable. We are not making it clear on these items. And then help me to understand how much that would cost to process a permit, and in case they decide not to move forward, how much would that cost be?
I think the application fee would be non-refundable, as was mentioned, I think, previously. So ultimately, you would be responsible for the application fee and any staff time that was put into the actual event. So if you know,
additional cost, the fee of the application, and then there's an additional cost
if
of
there were
review.
if there was staff cost to put barricades into a truck and they're on their way out to the event, and we get a call and they say, we'd just like to cancel, we don't want to host it anymore, then we would charge for that cost of service, if you will, of staff time for that.
Oh, I guess my understanding of application review costs was people sitting around the table and saying, does your department able to accommodate this event? Like perhaps municipal services, law enforcement, where, you know, we might have been overbooked that day, that costs.
Yeah, but it says that it's non-refundable permit application fee or daily fee. A permittee shall pay the city for all departmental services charges incurred in connection with or due to the permittee's activities under the permit, unless the service charges are funded or waived by the city council.
Yes.
So
I guess
there is the permit fee, the application fee, there's going to be time reviewed, there's probably going to be meetings with police, fire, planning, or, you know, and that time getting in preparation for the event, I don't think that would still be charged. And if the longer you go without canceling, the more the costs are incurring. And then, but there's also, the city manager pointed out to me too, that, you know, the council could waive that, but again, I would want the waiver of this, or this refund or something, to at least have some sort of public or community benefit, so you're not just
Right.
waiving public monies.
I think that's when I asked earlier, if we're going to be subsidizing some of these events, which department is it coming from? Which department budget is it going to be coming from?
So the subsidized events, Councilmember Liang, are the sponsored events of the city council. The other events should be cost recovery. So if there is an event that is not sponsored by the city, that applicant putting on the event has to pay for the staff time incurred.
So how do we get an updated review of the events? Is that, before we move forward, like, what is the rush? My question is, what is the rush here? Because, like, if we get more information coming towards us, and we get more information about actual costs, helping the public understand what costs truly are, I think.
Can I answer this? Okay.
Why do we have to do this now when we've been doing this the way it has? And then can it come back simultaneously as another agenda item or expanded agenda item where we can have more information about the other events?
City Attorney, you had, you had something to add?
I'll let Gabe go first.
So there's not a rush to do this. Council can adopt, delay, continue, not adopt. It's totally under your discretion. I think council may want to review what are city-sponsored events. I think that's fine for a future agenda item with support. We're happy to bring that back. We're getting a lot of questions around what is the actual cost for an event. That becomes difficult because events, as Mr. Carnesecca pointed out, sometimes last a week, sometimes last an hour. So the actual cost can be hard to determine. Sometimes events need extra police patrol, sometimes events don't. Sometimes events need roads closed, sometimes they don't. So it's difficult to determine what a normal special event looks like. What we can determine is that we have numerous events that don't fall under the definition of city event that get police public works services without charge.
Yeah, and that's really what we're trying to capture right now. And so there is no one-size-fits-all cost for service. I mean, it depends on the event, and closing a street might be different than use of a park. And so it is really hard to determine. And even if we continued it, we couldn't come back with a set amount of numbers for this type of event or that. It's dependent on.
But we can bring back how many events are being subsidized, correct?
Yes, and we decided when we did this ordinance that we're going to do the special event ordinance,
Correct.
Permit fees, get that all in place, get the legislative action in place, then come back and look at what is sponsored and co-sponsored, because
That'll be better.
And I will say, the only thing that would be impacted by the special events sponsorship would be if they were partially sponsored, they would pay the lesser application fee under the changes. Those special events would still be deemed special events. They would still fall under this ordinance. We are just capturing new fish into the net, if you will. I like fisher analogies. I don't know.
So, Councilmember Liang, are you done with your questions for the now? Okay. So, Councilmember Daley had already notified me he had a question. Then Councilmember Flagger, and then I have another question. We can just go round and round, just like Cirque du Soleil, which the Vice Mayor is not watching at the moment.
So, we currently charge for those expenses for special events without having visibility into exactly what those are going to be when the applicant submits their application. So I guess my question is there anything different with regard to charging the customer for these variable costs under the new ordinance versus the status quo?
Not that staff is aware of. Staff,
Except that more events may come into the net, be
Yes,
fish in the net,
because, yeah,
right?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have better definitions, so more people are going to pay to play, I would say.
Okay, Councilmember Fliger, that was good, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And Mr. Carnesecca, this ordinance was drafted, as you know, back in 2007, so I completely understand staff bringing this forward to ensure we're capturing all events that should be special events and to make sure we're covering staff costs as we should. So I completely understand why you're bringing it forward. But of course, in looking at this, since I wasn't on council in 2007, all these other questions are coming forward. So bear with me. So under section 9.25.040, section J, number 9, and I'll give everybody an opportunity, happy to repeat it, 9.25.040, section J9, we have that crossed out, and I'm just curious why.
Under J, mine is not crossed out.
Number 9, it says the event will not adversely affect. So it's one of the things that the city manager, and I'm curious why we crossed that one out.
So it's funny you mentioned that. I was looking at it just now and was trying to figure it out myself, and I realized when you look at number 4 on that same section, staff felt that they were repetitive in nature. So if you look at 4, it says the event will not require the diversion of public safety or other city employees from their normal duties so as to unreasonably reduce adequate levels of service to any other portion of the city. So we felt that number 9.
I've been in the room with you guys. I think they're a little different. Adversely affect means a broader.
Let's save that
Oh, yes.
for discussion.
You are
Thank
correct,
you.
Mayor.
Yes, okay, good. I got one right this evening. Yes. So my question that came to mind, and then I'm gonna, after my last question, I'm gonna check with Councilmember Daley if we can take public comment, or do you want the break before? I don't have any public comments. You could, yeah, we can get through public comment potentially. Okay, good. So my question, listening to this, and again, this is not easy to answer because the events can be so different, but what proportion does the application tend to be now versus the cost of staff time? So what proportion is the one first fee versus the variable cost, the fixed versus the variable versus where we're taking it? So clearly the variable costs are going to be a higher proportion under the new rules because the application fees are going down. But what does it look like now? Or yeah, you can't answer that. Okay.
I think we've established that it's in my staff report. I jokingly said that we have like a multi-minute special event, which is the spring egg hunt, right? So that's a special event versus we have the multi-day events of a whole weekend shutting. So it's very hard to kind of quantify, which is such a broad topic of special events. But
right.
Staff
and
is
actually,
trying to bring it in.
And actually, I think that was just leading. I was just trying to make a point that the staff time is, again, focused on cost recovery. The staff time is going to be a greater proportion of what's realized by the city under the changes if these were adopted.
And I will say that, it really depends on the. Yeah, we could.
Yeah,
I'll repeat myself.
I won't ask for examples. Okay, thank you. That horse is long since dead. Another one. Okay, last question, and I'm going to public comment.
What's missing here as well is, do you have a draft of the new application? Because I would like to see how the new application is worded.
So staff doesn't have a new version of the application. We would create the application based upon what guidelines were provided tonight. So if city council provided any directed changes, anything, we would then.
We usually don't bring applications back to council. I mean, you have staff draft them and that's what we have been doing with the applications.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to move to public comment. This is item 5. I have no speaker cards in chambers. Looks like we have one hand. I will give, since this is a discussion item, we'll give 3 minutes. I don't have a card. Will you fill out a card after? You can speak first and then fill out your card. So yes, Jerry Rice. And then fill out the card afterwards. So we're doing 3 minutes, City Clerk.
Thank you. Yes, there are many, or I should say, there are a number of special events that I've enjoyed in the city since, in the last 35, 40 years I've been here. The lights parade around Thanksgiving, the pet parade in the spring, a few things like this. What I've seen in Mountain View is this weekend after weekend having these arts and crafts fairs, and it's really annoying to the residents and to the some of the smaller businesses get affected by this. So I'm not a big fan of having a large number of these public events, and I think there are probably other residents that would have a similar idea. So I would definitely get input from the public before you from the residents of Los Altos before you move on trying to promote more events and to generate revenue. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. I don't think that's the goal, but please do fill out the card. We'll move to the online speakers.
Roberta Phillips.
Hi, this is Roberta. So I think it's a good thing that you're trying to make the definition more clear, because we don't want people to have events and not pay for them at all. That seems really unfair. But I do have a couple of concerns. One of the concerns is the 150 people. I think that, you can certainly strike that. Nobody knows where it came from, and people can say I'm only going to have 75 people. They don't know how many people are going to show up, so I think you can get rid of that. And I would propose a compromise. Right now, when you compare the new application fee to the old application fee, it's a reduction of anywhere, the highest of like 83% reduction, and that seems enormous. I could see if you wanted to cut in half or something as a compromise position, to get a decent amount of money or fair amount of money in the beginning, and then collect the fees for the police and the maintenance and the cleanup, etc. So that's my suggestion, is eliminate the number of 150 people completely, clean up the definition, and actually, the city council should know what are special events that are sponsored by the city, and because if there's 23 applications now, I happen to somewhat agree with the gentleman who just spoke before. I wouldn't want to see special events every single weekend. We have weekends where it rains. We have weekends, where people just want to have, be able to go out and have a cup of coffee without having a special event and people coming from out of town. It's really good on occasion to have that, but not constantly. So thank you. That's my suggestion.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. Okay, so no further public comment, so I'll close public comment. With that, before we start discussion, I think I have a request that council takes a break. I'm going to call it 7 minutes. So we'll let's actually call it 8. So we'll be back at 8:50. I don't know how close you are to the slot machines, Vice Mayor, but we'll see you back in 8 minutes. Thank you.
And get 3 or 4 rows on the craps table.
There you go. Okay. Okay, I'm going to call this meeting back to order as people slowly wander back to their seats. Wander, wander. All right. So I'm going to call that our 9 o'clock break. So I'm going to do a check-in with my colleagues, and my anticipation is we're going to go through the whole agenda tonight. Does anyone disagree with that assessment, other than the vice mayor?
He's outvoted.
He's outvoted. Okay, so we do anticipate covering all the rest of the items on the agenda. So we had our council questions. We also had public comment. So we're ready to open the discussion on this amendment to the municipal code special events. Who would like to kick us off? Yeah, Councilmember Flagger.
Start. Okay, I will start with, so I appreciate staff bringing this forward, and it's clear why we need to do this update, even if it's not complete, it's not perfect, there are other things we may need to look at. I definitely support moving forward with approving this updated ordinance tonight. I do have some suggested changes that I want to share with my colleagues. The first, and I alluded to this during the Q&A, which is under special event definition in 9.25.010, the definition section, special event, for consistency, especially because Mr. Carnesecca explained that number 4 is intended to be a catch-all for events that may have less than 150, but still would interfere and may generate a crowd. Just for consistency, I do think we need to make sure public place, property, and public areas are used consistently throughout. So for 2 and 3, it says public place or property, but then in 4, we say public areas. And I don't have a preference, Mayor and colleagues. I just think we want to make sure that we're using the same terms and it will apply to all the same places.
And let's see if staff has input on that right now, because I think consistency is very important.
I think we're comfortable with that.
I was just curious if you wanted to, have you picked one, or are you going to use all of them? Just curious.
I think the only suggested change, or if we're going to pick one, is looking at it now, it looks like 2 has place or property, 3 has property, and then 4 has area. So if you pick one, or all 3.
Okay, I shouldn't have even taken us down to that level. My apologies, I slipped. But we'll let you propose it and come back with consistent.
We can define public property.
Thank you.
In one place and then use it from there on after.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Then number 2, we use fax. And I recognize this is back in 2007, so I wonder if we should change that to email or some kind of electronic communication. In a couple places we say fax, and I'm sure there are places that still use a fax machine, but let's update that. It is Silicon Valley.
Someone may use it, but nobody receives them.
And then I don't know how my colleagues feel about putting back number 9 under 9.25.040. I do think it's a broader criteria that the city manager could apply. Mr. Carnesecca had explained that they took out, and it's 9.25.040 J9.
City staff is comfortable with that. If city council feels that it would be best to have that, we can re-add that.
So you're proposing keeping 4 and keeping 9, both?
I am, yes.
Yes, okay. And you're fine with that, then I'm good with it. Anyone else? Yep, everyone's okay. Vice Mayor, you can unmute if you have anything and I don't notice you, so feel free to unmute and say something.
Thank you.
I don't know why that's funny, but
because it's so unlike the vice mayor to have two words.
All right, keep going, council member.
So just a few more. I do think we need to be explicit in the ordinance saying that there's no cost associated with block parties. That's just a one-liner. And then on the cancellations, another clarifying point, if I heard the city manager correctly, we will not issue refunds if an applicant cancels the event for a reason that was within their control. Is that correct? So I think, again, we need to say that. And then the last thing, Mayor, on the appeals, and I spoke to the city attorney during the break because I wanted to make sure that we do have an administrative hearing officer. And I want to make sure I understand the hearing appeal. So we do have an administrative hearing officer. So, Mr. Carnesecca, in the event that the city council is not able to hear an appeal before the scheduled date, an appeal would go to the administrative hearing officer. Is that correct? And the hearing officer would have the final say.
I think the way that
I didn't know we had one either, but we do.
I'll defer to the city manager to the city attorney. It wasn't my question. I'll defer to.
So, city attorney, under the appeal section 9.25, as I scroll down to get the exact section, 9.25.140, if I'm reading this correctly, the last sentence where it says, when the necessity for a timely response so requires, the council may refer the matter to a hearing officer. I assume that is in the event, no pun intended, but it's a situation where the city council would not be able to hear the appeal before the scheduled event, and so we need a timely response, so we would have a hearing officer hear the appeal. Is that correct?
Yes, and that's to get into the minutia. This is just to avoid a prior restraint on a First Amendment activity. So you have to have the appeals very timely.
So then, and we do have an administrative hearing officer.
Yes, we do. That's, I was just checking with the chief, too.
Perfect. And those are my suggestions, Mayor. Thank you.
Wait, who's the hearing officer?
We use a person that is a retired city attorney that we have on, she's as needed.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they asked about her a few weeks ago, and I wanted to make sure she's still going to be doing hearings for us.
So since we're not all together in the room, I'm going to check after each comment and make sure if we support or don't support. I support everything that I heard Councilmember Flagler suggest, and staff seemed okay with it. So Councilmember Daley, you're good. Councilmember Liang, are you good with the suggested changes?
Yes.
Yeah, and Vice Mayor, you can just put a thumbs up if you're okay.
Yes.
All right, perfect. So I think we're all good on that. So who would like to go next? Vice Mayor, do you have any suggested points? That's a no, right? Can you hear us? Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Councilmember Daley. Councilmember Liang, I don't have any, I'm good with.
I would like this item to be continued so that we can add the other item to expand that, to better understand the special events, because I think if I learn more about the other events, I may want to make changes to this. Otherwise, my request then is to have that item agendized for the next meeting so that in case we want to revisit some things, I think we could have further discussion about it. Then the other thing is I would hope that we would also be able to get information from the various departments regarding any impacts, if any, were to occur. or they should really have an opportunity for the departments, and then we can get a report back from both the municipal departments as well as law enforcement department to provide some input regarding their view of the direction we're taking.
Let me ask a question of staff. Aren't they doing it regardless? It's just a matter of whether we get cost recovery or not?
Correct. And I would note that I have heard from staff in the municipal services yard that they would be excited to have the cost recovery for those events that are previously not budgeted. So it's having to come out of the budget. And so the more events that we can get under this new purview will actually give those departments the freedom to do the other projects that they need to get done while covering the costs of these events.
So because my concern is whether we're short-staffed and would it be a burden? So I want to make sure that we understand these items moving forward.
No new special events are intended to burden staff any more than the current special events. So, and the events that aren't under the purview currently. So, any events that would burden staff, we would figure out a way to work around that and moving forward.
So I heard this in the public comments to some extent. Are we really anticipating a change to any great extent in the events? We're just trying to capture existing events. We're not necessarily anticipating more events. Is that correct?
Correct. There are a number of events that are occurring that we'd like to capture, and
Yeah.
if other events do come in, we will capture the charge for those as well.
Right.
I think, would it be possible to revisit this then as a term from 1 year? Because I think your comment was, either the city attorney or your comment, I heard it come out from staff, more people will pay to play. So if we're anticipating a more pay-to-play type of atmosphere, then we need to be able to revisit this after a year and to see if we need to.
I think the pay to play comment was that there are events that are not special events now that we are already covering internally for city services that we hope to have those individuals pay to play from those events that currently exist, but we're not capturing those funds.
But then I also heard that there is going to possibly be an increase. So I think I would just, if you. Okay.
Let me, the vice mayor has his hand up, and so then we'll circle back and check if you, where we stand regarding what, if I understand your kind of two proposals. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually wanted to make a motion.
Okay, so I don't, the explanation that we've had is we're not changing the workload. We're simply getting cost recovery on work that staff is doing already, but not being able to budget for or in their, whether time or the actual cost of the work. So this is not incenting to any real extent a change in events. Is that correct, City Manager? Yes.
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay. So I think I would I don't have anything to add. I think we've had Councilmember Fleiger's changes, which I think were good changes. So Vice Mayor, I'd like to hear what your motion, okay.
There needs to be an amendment to the resolution, and we didn't go over the resolution.
Well, we're looking for comments now. So you have some comments on the resolution. I'll come to you. So you have no comments, Vice Mayor. You're just ready to make a motion when we get to that point. Thank you.
Yes.
Under the resolution, it's fifth, whereas the city council recognizes that the city of Los Altos, we're missing a of, and then also in the chart number 1, amend, if you're gonna move forward, amend the current special event fee structure in addition to the actual charges. I think we need to provide more clarity on what actual charges are. I would like further information so people understand what actual charges are. And then I think that'd be better. Either we can put the actual charges in parens.
So let me ask, city attorney or city manager, we're essentially just talking about the staff charges. I'm not, city manager, is there a wording?
Mayor,
Yeah.
it's at the pleasure of the council. If you wanted to amend the resolution to put in such as police, public works charges, that would be fine, as long as we're not tying a specific number to it, because that number can change.
Why don't we use the language in the code, all city department service charges?
Okay.
Incurred
okay.
in connection with,
I'd be
we'll
good
just
with that.
mimic that language.
All right, so we've got the suggested changes. Vice Mayor, I'm going to come to you for a motion.
Thank you, Mayor. First motion is I move that the council adopt an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Los Altos, amending section 9.25 of the Los Altos Municipal Code governing special events and block parties as amended per our discussion this evening.
Wait,
Second.
yeah, you need to say introduce and
amendment.
waive further reading, right?
Friendly
Yes.
amendment.
And introduced by title only and waive further reading.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember, your friendly amendment?
We talked about the amendments onto the municipal code, but also onto the resolution. Oh, I didn't hear that. Okay, I didn't hear that. Okay, I thought it was just for the.
Well, you did just say the ordinance so far,
Yeah.
you didn't say the resolution,
Yeah.
right? He's doing a two-part motion, so we're
Are
talking
we
about
doing-
the ordinance.
Oh, I wasn't
Yes.
sure if we're doing two parts. Okay, thank you.
Yes. All right, City Clerk, we have a first and a second.
Councilmember Daley.
Yes.
Councilmember Fliger.
Yes.
Councilmember Liang.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Weinberg.
Yes.
Mayor Meadows.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Vice Mayor, you have another one. If you were going to make it.
Mayor?
Yep.
I move that the council adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Los Altos, amending special event fees and establishing differentiated fee structure based on type of organization with the amendment proposed by the city attorney.
Second.
Councilmember Daley.
Yes.
Councilmember Fliger.
Yes.
Councilmember Liang.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Weinberg.
Yes.
Mayor Meadows.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you, colleagues. So let's move on to discussion item 6. Let me frame how we're going to do this. This is not going to be as complicated as when we had so many commissions and commissioner candidates. So there's essentially two decisions in front of us tonight. One is we have a candidate for the Joint Volunteer Awards Committee, and I don't think we need to belabor it. We're just looking for a yes or a no on that one commissioner. So I would suggest we just do that through oral, and so I'm just laying out the process. I'm going to come to council for any questions, and then we'll take public comment, et cetera, the usual. But for that one volunteer, we just vote yes or no. I mean, it's as simple as that. And then the park nomination, we have the option of either looking and doing it by ballot, which we have in front of it, or just discussing that and doing it sort of live as we're doing with our JVAC candidate. And I think it's a little bit more awkward to do it by ballot with the vice mayor not here. So if my colleagues are amenable, we can just discuss and do that while we're here. Councilmember Daley.
My suggestion, Mayor, is that we simply nominate one person from the list. Each council member, go to each council member, and, I might say, whomever, and then you'll have a smaller list from which to work.
That's certainly a possibility, but we might have some questions. So what I'm going to do is open up. I'm trying to frame how we might do it, and we might have some tweaks as we go through. I think the first one is not really tweaking. We just vote yes or no. So, Councilmember Liang, I think you had a question.
Yeah, I think before we do the Parks, Art, Recreation, and Culture Commission, I did have questions.
Okay, so so do any colleagues have any other questions? I agree, we'll have questions and discussion on park and just when we get to that. Do I have any
No,
questions?
mine is before Parks.
Right. About park or
No.
about JVAC?
Yeah, about JVAC.
Okay, all right, so, let me see, let me see if we have any questions around how we're gonna approach this, and then I'll open it for public comment if I don't have, Councilmember Flagger, you have a question?
Just to respond to how you laid out the process, I like the way you laid out the process, Mayor. I think it's simple. It's 2 commissions. We should just wrap it up tonight. And so I support the way you laid out the process.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember. So, I'm going to open this to public comment. I don't have any speaker cards. I don't see any hands online. Okay.
I didn't get that. Could you?
She's on Do Not Disturb, but she chose to disturb nonetheless. Sorry, my apologies for that. I really have it on Do Not Disturb. All right, so we have no public comments. We're going to bring it back to the first one. The JVAC Councilmember Liang, you said you have questions. I don't know that we need to belabor too much. I mean, again, we have one candidate.
I don't intend to belabor
Okay,
it.
go,
I just
okay,
needed
go ahead.
information.
Go ahead.
So my question is to our city clerk, because based on what I see here in the packet, the letter that was received is September 26, 2023. And I want to better understand what evidence that we have that this application was submitted the date before the deadline or the date, as stated, that all applications will be received by a deadline. What date was it received?
City Manager, do you want to take this because we already
Thanks,
talked
Mayor.
about it last time? Thank you.
Correct. We did discuss it at the last meeting. The applicant applied twice, had contacted 2 council members as well as tried to reach out to myself, but was unable to get the application through the system. We did have additional applications that were either miscounted or counted in a different area. So it's reasonable to assume that the application was submitted but not received.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure our process was correct, and because then I have this based on the last meeting's date, and it would be only fair for me to understand that process was followed, and I would feel more comfortable knowing that.
Yes.
I do, just to follow up on that,
Yes.
if the city council is not comfortable as a body, council is able to reopen the applications. If the council is comfortable, they may move forward.
But that's why I wanted to hear, like, when did you receive the email? Was it right after the expiration, what the date it was supposed to be submitted? Or did you receive your emails? Did you receive it
the
a
context-
week after the submission of the deadline? I think to me, it's about making sure it was received prior to the deadline or,
So
within the dates, the timing.
Councilmember Ling, the contacts were within the application period.
Okay, I just want to verify that. I think it wasn't, to me, verified enough, so I wanted to hear that.
Okay, the email had been shared with us, but anyway.
Well, it did bother me when you said, oh, 3 of us can vouch for her.
No, I understand that
So,
you don't
to
trust
me-
that we said that.
No,
but
it's
that's
just
why
a
the
Brown
email,
Act thing
that's
for me.
okay.
Yeah,
That's
it's
why
just a
the
Brown
email
Act
was
for
shared.
me.
We shared it that the applicant tried. So I'm going to call a vote. I'm nominating our applicant, Lindsay Carpenter, for JVAC. I'm going to let the city clerk call the roll.
You need a second? No?
Not for-
Oh,
not for
no, okay,
nominations.
nomination.
Councilmember Daley.
Yes, happily.
Councilmember Flagger.
Yes.
Councilmember Liang.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Weinberg.
Yes.
Mayor Meadows.
Yes.
Lindsay Carpenter has been appointed to a 4-year term.
Thank you very much, and you will let her know. Yes. All right, thank you so much. Okay, so on the park then, I want to go to the vice mayor, and because I do have a question, and we do have, I want to clarify, we have an opportunity. I think council was pretty clear last time. We appointed what we thought were 7 commissioners to the new park. It turned out that there was one who wasn't really on park, so we have an opening right now. So my proposal is that we basically all decided last time that we wanted 7, so we have 1 opening. I'm proposing we not reopen the discussion around whether we want to put, 1 or 2 beyond 7 in there. So we have 1 opening. Do my colleagues agree with the 1 opening premise? And if so, then it looks like we have general agreement with that. Okay, council member. So we seem to agree we'd have a commission of 7. We have 1 opening. So I want to go to the vice mayor because I know you strongly advocated for an applicant, and I want to ask you, because we haven't heard from the applicant, nor did we expect to tonight. That's fine, but there was a concern about attendance. Have you talked to Mr. Ye, and is he able to commit to the commission in his full capacity? Obviously, not everyone can make every meeting, we understand that. But can you advocate for Mr. Ye and the attendance question that I think some of us had at the last meeting?
I have not spoken with Commissioner Ye since our last meeting. I will continue to advocate for him based on the quality of the input that I personally witnessed him give and that I experienced myself when I was on park with him. I have no further information, and I cannot speak to his recommitment to the issue of attendance.
Okay, Mr. Daly? I mean, Councilmember Daly, sorry.
Anything but late for dinner, Mayor. I'm pretty fond of the commissioner, Ye, that the vice mayor is recommending. I served with him too. In fact, he and I started our service at the same meeting, but I am not actually going to advocate for Commissioner Ye. I think that the best addition to that commission would be Sindel Potich. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, but I was particularly impressed with a number of things that she said to us. First of all, she was here in person, which for me is added points. I was convinced when I heard her that she has the ability to find consensus among disparate stakeholders, and when you're dealing with something like art and choosing to recommend the purchase and placement of art, it's really subjective. So you have to have some soft skills, and she's been doing this particular activity already for, I believe, for one of the local dioceses or something like that. But I just found her experience and her soft skills to be something that I would have really enjoyed to have on commission as well. Not taking anything away from any of the commissioners with whom I served. I just am that positive about Sindel.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilmember Fleger.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to support the Vice Mayor on his nomination of Commissioner Ye. I shared the mayor's concerns at the last meeting about his attendance, but that is the only concern I have about Commissioner Ye, because I also know him well. He's very engaged in the community outside of the commission. I know he adds value as a commissioner, and he's an incumbent. And with all the changes with this new park composition, it's good to have continuity with someone who's been on the commission. And so that's another value add for me. I do think, I am the park liaison, and so I'm going to place this on myself if he moves forward to have a conversation with him about his attendance. I do think he'll be receptive to that. But for many reasons, you know, one of the things years ago we wanted with our commissions was diversity, both gender, race, also geography, and I know he lives in South Los Altos. So for many reasons, even though I share the mayor's concerns about his attendance, I think we do need to talk to him. I support the vice mayor's support of Commissioner Ye.
Councilmember Liang.
I think they're both good individuals and good recommendations. And the positive thing, I do have concerns about absenteeism. And I did look at the applications again, and not only about the art background, I did like that there was camp volunteer experience that was under that individual that you had highlighted. And also that individual attended the commission meetings and also had been a former teacher as well. So to me, I thought those were wonderful pluses. And I did hear some concerns about making sure that we can have a cohesive commission. So I thought it's about someone who's be able to bring those skills together. So I think that said, they're both great candidates, but I wanted to highlight the pluses of Sindel. Thank you.
So I'm sensing we have two advocating for incumbent Mr. Ye and two for Ms. Potich. I want to also say I was very impressed with Shraddha Balakrishnan. So actually I was impressed with pretty much everybody. So let's just, you know, we were very fortunate in our recruitment. Thank you to staff. So it looks like I'm the tiebreaker vote. I am going to support the vice mayor's advocacy of Yang Ye. I will also accept Councilmember Fliger's willingness to speak with the commissioner. I do, and so she can explain our concerns. And so I broke the tie in favor of Commissioner Ye, I think.
So one more question.
Yes.
Because we're doing an incumbent, then I would advocate that we do an opportunity to have both incumbents return.
We actually already, in the course of tonight's discussion, agreed that we agreed at
but
7.
I guess
so.
I if we're gonna lean towards an incumbent, then I would encourage both incumbents.
Okay, I don't, any support for that concept? I mean, we already discussed that, so no. So, Vice Mayor, do you want to make a nomination on Yang Ye so the city clerk can do a roll call?
I nominate Yang Ye for the open seat on Mark.
Councilmember Daley.
Yes.
Councilmember Fliger.
Yes.
Councilmember Liang.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Weinberg.
Yes.
Mayor Meadows.
Yes.
Yang Ye has been appointed to a 4-year term.
All right, thank you, colleagues. So we're going to move on to consent item number 3. And Councilmember Liang, you pulled both the items, so I will let you start off on both, but with number 3 to explain why you pulled it and what you want to discuss.
I pulled it because I wanted to see some edits to this letter, and I would like to provide my suggestions. So I think another bullet would be needed because I know that supervisors submitted an always advocates for full mitigation. So I think another bullet should be to fully mitigate all impacts. I think there are impacts that
Can you tell me where you are? I'm sorry, I just got to that item and I'm
the
not.
letter, because only
Right, there's only one page, but I'm not sure what.
to add a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bullet.
Add a sixth bullet.
And then I would state that we fully mitigate all impacts. I think people need to be aware that there are, how would I say, and I guess I worded it this way because we don't mitigate for the funds needed for services and infrastructure, just like they have the property on El Camino, and we don't get any taxes from that. So I think I simplified it, so then my bullet wouldn't have to be so long. And I wanted to expand bullet 5 to state including the expansion of the Marguerite shuttle to Los Altos. Because if they're trying to reduce their vehicle miles traveled and to address their DMT, their DMT, then we need to hopefully request that they expand their Marguerite shuttle to come to Los Altos and even include, I just simplified it instead of telling them to go downtown and stuff. So
Okay.
the Marguerite shuttle does go to Mountain View, and so I would hope that they would also include Los Altos.
Okay, so
And-
let me ask, so you have more, but,
Yeah, one
okay,
more.
go ahead.
And I do support, and then a speaker also raised it, about supporting maintaining the open space conservation land for 99 years. To me, it would be perpetuity. It was also a recommendation by the Green Foothills. So to me, that is important as well. So either we state that we support maintaining the open space conservation land for 99 years would be a way to go as recommended by Green Foothills.
Okay, so let me see if I can summarize on a higher level, and which is so you support what is here, and you're proposing some additional stronger mitigations. That's what you're doing.
Correct.
Okay, so we've heard those, and Councilmember Flagger, I consider to be sort of the expert on this. Can you? You're shaking your head. All right. Well, expert on this dais.
Right. Let's limit the scope.
Yeah. Let's caveat that. So you heard them, and how do you think they feel in the context of what the supervisor is trying to do?
Thank you, Mayor. And let me start by thanking Mr. Zorns, who drafted this letter, and I thought he did a great job because the bullets he listed are including but not limited to. And so he obviously just highlighted the main areas that he thought we should highlight in the letter. It doesn't mean it doesn't address full mitigation or open space or all these other aspects of the plan. So I am actually, let me start off by saying I'm comfortable sending the letter as drafted, because I think the most important thing is to show that as a city, as a council, we support this community plan. With regards to open space, I do think we touch on it already, and I'm comfortable if we want to add a bullet and there's language in the community plan that talks about open space, preserving open space, we can do that. But I'm also comfortable not including that language, because I actually don't think it will change anything, because we are saying in the letter we support the community plan being proposed. On the Marguerite shuttle system, I am concerned, Mayor, if we add language specifying Los Altos, because currently in the plan it doesn't call out Los Altos, and we have had real experts study this for years, and they did not specify Los Altos, certain cities that are farther away, and I don't know why. And so I wouldn't want to deviate or specify Los Altos when it clearly wasn't specified for a reason that we may not be aware of. And then full mitigation, I wouldn't want to put that terminology either because I've seen offset impact, and I've even heard staff talk about, what does full mitigation really mean? And we could have a 2-hour discussion on what full mitigation really means. And so to sum up, Mayor, I don't support putting full mitigation because that could mean different things to different
But
people.
then we could clarify it and say including property taxes as per the law allows.
I'm not an expert to go down that road on the research that was done for the community plan and why they didn't get to that level of detail. So I wouldn't support that. The Marguerite shuttle, again, it wasn't included. They talked about, shopping districts in certain areas, but they didn't specify Los Altos. So I wouldn't want to suggest something that obviously may have been contemplated but not included in the community plan. On the open space throughout the community plan, there's even a section on open space. And so what the public commenter said, and also Councilmember Liang, it is consistent with the community plan. Again, we don't have to include it because I think the letter already covers that. But if we wanted to, I could support adding a bullet, just making clear that we want to preserve open space.
So can I clarify something as well?
Go ahead, Councilmember.
This letter, and we are here to advocate for our community, to advocate for our city. So if we just expand that bullet to talk about the Marguerite shuttle being expanded to Los Altos, I don't think it hurts it. I think it's helping them to recognize that they can do that, and it would be encouraged that they expand their Marguerite shuttle to include Los Altos.
I'd like to interject. So as the person that authored the letter and actually has read over the over 2,000 pages that Jacqueline, the me of Santa Clara, put together with her team, is that there is exhaustive mitigation measures that was included in the actual EIR that is accompanied with this community plan update. It's not something that we should go down the rabbit hole of trying to add additional mitigation measures, is that those are things that are under the purview of CEQA. One of the things that I will say is I do think that although the premise of the Marguerite shuttle thought process is good, however, one of the things that is a fundamental, that is something that is actually contained in the circulation and trip metrics for the Stanford update, is that currently under the existing community plan, is Stanford relies on a very outdated practice of trip metrics. That's not even something that we use with LOS. And that's really what all jurisdictions in California utilize. This update to the community plan will actually require Stanford to rely solely based on VMT analysis, which very well in the future could, as a mitigation measure under CEQA, require additional shuttle service. That's actually what VMT actually does under CEQA versus the outdated practice that a lot of jurisdictions use, which is LOS, or level of service. So we, by supporting the conversion of trip metrics to vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, under CEQA, that is actually something that very well might be a mitigation method, but we cannot specify that because, just like we've talked about with other things recently in the city, is that until you have a project, you cannot propose mitigation methods until it's actually looked at and the analysis is done. CEQA cannot happen as a predetermination rather than when a project is actually presented for actual review. Additionally, one of the things that I would like to at least point out is because the Board of Supervisors agenda packet is not published until later this week, I did request to see if I could get it a little bit early, at least a draft of some of the initial documents, but that wasn't acceptable by the supervisor's office or the clerk of the board. So I did have to rely solely on the most recent agenda packet that was published by the Planning Commission of the County of Santa Clara, which was September 28th, so only 12 days ago. And in that, the major policy recommendations are actually the major bullet points verbatim from the staff report. So the Director of Planning and Development for the County of Santa Clara is the one that authored the report, and those are the bullet points verbatim that we actually said. So I know that we had the comment from the public about preventing spillover of housing into surrounding cities. That is verbatim from the report, and that is something that we should not deviate from.
Thank you, Director Zorns. Councilmember Daley.
Full disclosure, as a grad student at Stanford for the last 5 years, I gave input on this plan, in particular the provision that allows for 1,900 new graduate student housing units. A word about the Marguerite Shuttle. As much as I would love to take the Marguerite Shuttle from here to Stanford, the fact is Mountain View is justifiable because it's a 60% rental community. And so Stanford students live there. But there's probably a negligible number of Stanford students in our community that would be impacted. I would love to find out differently, but this letter is written to the Board of Supervisors. It's not written to the regents or any other body at Stanford. So I think making recommendations in this letter to change the community plan versus what's already come forward to this point is not appropriate. So I support the letter as it's written, but I do recognize that these interests that you have are important, and we should continue to stay engaged with Stanford as a community partner.
Vice Mayor, your hand is up.
Thank you, Mayor. While the language of full mitigation, I think, is not feasible, I thought that the other two ideas that were brought up were interesting. However, I find Councilmember Flygore's and Councilmember Daly's perspectives and arguments persuasive, so I would agree with them.
All right, I can take a motion. I would also say, Director Zorns might not like this, but Councilmember, you can always send your own letter as well to add additional points. But Council, I think, is happy with this as written. Thank you, Councilmember Flagger. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion, Mayor, and I want to thank Mr. Zorns again. I move that we authorize the mayor to sign the letter that's included in the packet as drafted in support of the current draft of the Stanford Community Plan update, and to transmit this letter for the Board of Supervisors meeting next Tuesday.
I will second that.
Councilmember Daley.
Yes.
Councilmember Flagger.
Yes.
Councilmember Liang.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Weinberg.
Yes.
Mayor Meadows.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. So now we're on to consent item number 4. Councilmember Liang, you want to fill us in on why you pulled this?
Yeah, I pulled it because I do have additional questions on going forth and some possible changes. So, Mr. Zorns, I was wondering, would it be a problem if we brought this back after we had our community outreach meeting on the 25th and we continued this item till after that meeting?
The Planning Commission meets to review this item next week, and then the community meeting is subsequently happening. Actually, we are moving it to the first week of November, and then subsequently this is coming to the City Council on November 14th and then November 28th. So there will be 4 opportunities for the community to have this in front of them over the course of the next 30 days.
Okay, but then if we approve this tonight, we can't make any more changes and it's a done deal, right?
Oh, so you're asking about, sorry, I was bleeding together the next round of, yeah. So you're talking about delaying tonight's
actions.
I would highly recommend against doing that, as we have a very large docket for the next housing element agenda item that is larger than this packet.
Yeah, and the other zoning is separate from this. So having the community meeting on these other sections of the zoning is separate from this.
Yeah, the community meeting in regards to these specific amendments has already taken place. We're moving forward with the community meeting that is directly focused on the next set of amendments. And so any delay in that by just virtue of what is on the rest of the tentative council agenda, we would not meet our statutory due date of the beginning of the year to adopt the programs that are required.
But if we want to make changes, it will do so, and then we could put it on consent. The next calendar meeting, we'd still meet it.
No, we would have to reintroduce.
Reintroduce it.
So this would be essentially starting the process all over again in November.
Okay.
So let me check with other colleagues if they have any comments on this item. I'm not seeing anything, so.
But I want,
No,
I have more
go
questions.
ahead. I was just checking to see if anyone else wanted to add on.
Okay. So I asked a question regarding 14.44030 regarding permitted uses. So one of the repair stores or auto repair stores and tire stores downtown, would that be allowed to continue if the business is sold? If since we scratched it out?
Yeah, as long as the use does not break its chain of continuation, it would be determined to be a legal non-conforming use. So it would be able to continue and change hands in the operation.
As long as it doesn't.
As long as it doesn't break the chain of
Is it
operation.
6 months?
But by scratching
So
it,
it would be discontinued. So if it was to discontinue for greater than 6 months, then the use in and of itself now becomes null and void at that property. If it were to just change hands with no break in the continuation, then it continues on. We do not look at ownership when it comes to conditional use permits as it used to be a long time ago.
would it be a non-conforming use permit, and then they would have to reapply, and then if we scratch it out, they wouldn't get a permit to operate?
No,
Okay.
it's a legal non-conforming use, and so use permits, they run with the land until the use is discontinued for greater than 6 months, and that's when it would actually become null and void.
Okay, and then on regarding the wireless under 14.80.050, what is a common carrier wireless exchange access services?
This is something that is defined in Section 47 of the U.S. Constitution. So I could not answer that. It's a federal regulation. We had special legal counsel of Myers-Nave that actually helped write this section of the ordinance that is consistent with FCC guidelines. So there would be nothing for us to modify. And it's also not something that's contained in this section of the ordinance. This explicitly just talks about the conditional use permit in regards to the authority and approval of such.
Councilmember Daley thinks he can answer your question, which
So
I'll let him
that
try.
refers to basic wireless services, and it's defined in the Telecom Reform Act of 1995, federal legislation. But basically, what we're talking about is AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile cell service.
Okay, I thought that was covered under commercial mobile services. So, okay, but then once again, it'll be highlighting that. So then my question to you, Director Zorns, is if we changed it where we instead provide the review to City Council, because the City Council, instead of in that section, in scratch out Planning Commission and make it come to City Council, can we do that?
Specific to wireless carriers, it's not something that was required in the housing element, and I'm going to clear up that confusion for the community. This is to bring the ordinance consistent with the practice of all other zoning regulations in the city of Los Altos. It is, again, and I will reiterate this because it is the common fact and knowledge of what is going on in all other land use regulation or jurisdictions in the county. City councils do not take final action on normal land use regulations such as these. It ends up being the appeal authority.
I understand, but if we wanted to do that and have the council review, if we had majority, could we do that?
Conflicts with our.
So it would conflict with the code. If there is a majority of council who would like us to change this section and change the section of the code, you would have to have support for your colleagues.
Okay. So 14.40140, height of structures, whereas residential-only developments, building height shall be a maximum of 40 feet and 4 stories. That was removed from the ordinance. Why is the height, if we want to leave it in, could we leave that in and not strike it? Because, for example, if Rancho were to be developed, what if someone decides to build 2 buildings, like in Sunnyvale? I'm going to use the buildings in Sunnyvale. It seems like the residential buildings should still have a maximum height. And if they do 2 buildings and 1 building's all retail, because retail doesn't have to be on the ground floor, which we said, and they choose to build a building that'll be all retail, that would mean that the retail building would have a higher building maximum then. Is that correct? And it would seem like the maximums should be set for both scenarios. Can we do that?
You'd be establishing a height of a structure that doesn't have the residential only use as a permitted use. So you have an internal inconsistency with the zoning district. I would not, I believe what you're essentially asking is that just in case someone were to deploy something like density bonus and they were being able to then waive the requirement for the height designation or the mixed use requirement and then use the height designation for something that we do not have as a prescribed allowed use, it's not gonna help remedy anything. They're still gonna be allowed to use the maximum height that would be allowed in the district. What we did at the last council meeting is we took away the flexibility of the regulatory environment by requiring the CN district to develop with only the mixed use component as an option. So that is why it was intentionally structured to allow for all 3, is residential, mixed use, and non-residential. But as we know, we well discussed and took that provision away. So developers are now required the 20 to 33% requirement.
Okay, under 14.40070, when we
Can I follow up, Mayor?
Councilmember Fliger, follow up.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you. So, Mr. Jones, I want to make sure I understand what you just said, because I know we changed it the last time. But in the event that a developer is able to take advantage of waiver concessions and then solely build 100% residential, and I know that's not what council or the community wants, but in the event that happens, what would be the height limit there, or is there no height limit? Because right now, the language, to Councilmember Liang's point, we took out the no structure, which would include everything, and now we're specifying mixed use and non-residential. And I understand why, because that's what we want there. But in the event that we do end up with 100% residential, what would be the height restriction?
Unless you have corresponding height regulations and permitted use of residential only development, it's going to be 45 feet as specified. So they're going to be in full transparency. If they want to use a concession, incentive, or waiver under density bonus, they can waive the requirement for the mixed use, and then they still get to use the 45 feet. We can't then say you have to then have another waiver or concession and then get your extra 5 feet. It's just not going to happen that way. We've established that the maximum height in the district can be 45 feet.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's important to have that on record.
And let me make sure then, that's the price we pay for choosing to provide that incentive. Yes, it doesn't come for free.
Okay. So under 1440.070, regarding mixed-use developments, shall have no maximum floor area ratio within the CN zoning district, the commercial neighborhood district. under B, non-residential use only developments shall have a maximum floor area ratio of 35 feet, 35% of the total area of the site. Does this essentially keep a CN site density as is? If a developer wanted to keep the site all commercial, does it mean that the density changes only if it's mixed use?
That's correct. So it does not incentivize a developer to build a new commercial-only development. Is if they want to get the benefit of additional floor area ratio, which is what's required in our housing element, is you have to establish residential use.
Okay, does it make any difference if the housing and commercial are in separate buildings?
No, so the site, so as long as there's still a mixture, you can kind of refer to it as that way in with the application. As long as there's a mixture of the uses on the same site of the parcel, they could consolidate and have one standalone kind of flagship building towards the front of the property, and then build backwards the residential component, and they could still be standalone by themselves essentially.
Okay. Then if a developer were to take advantage of builder's remedy, could the entire parcel be turned in? So we're established that the whole, because they can already do all retail, all residential. But if they do builder's remedy,
So the city of Los Altos is no longer
okay,
susceptible
so
to
it's
builder's
clear that
remedy.
we know.
That's why we're doing this.
Right.
Okay.
So that, yeah, and that, I mean, so that if that's kind of some of the mirrored confusion in the community that is why it is exponentially important for the city to move forward with all of the programs that are being presented over the next, 30 to 45 days, because that safe harbors the city from not having uncontrolled development standards. So if we are able to continue to diligently adopt our programs, then we are able to safe harbor the city from having uncontrolled development standards.
So I think what's important for me, as well as for many people, because it was my understanding that ever since we got our housing element approved, that builder's remedy was off the table. But it was important for them to hear it from you, and that confirmed it. So thank you for that. So then, when we talked about concession and waivers through density bonus to allow for lesser percentage of commercial than 20%, and up to as little as 0% in CN, pursuant to Government Code 65915, by requesting that non-residential requirement be waived by use of a concession incentive. Density bonus means that Rancho or other CN sites could be back to all housing no matter what. And I think we've established that no matter, even if we say we want this mixed use, it can go back to all residential, and a developer can apply for density bonus and all that.
That's correct.
Great, because that's why we're having these meetings, and the city is sponsoring these meetings, is because you can reiterate what we're hearing today and what I may be conveying to the community. So, do we have any options to disincentivize a developer to go all residential and to continue to maintain mixed use?
There's not a way for us to disincentivize it. It would be for us to incentivize the creation of mixed-use development, which, as I mentioned last time, is that there's three main ones that have been talked about at the state level, and it is a financial incentive, which usually comes in the form of waiving fees, or a reduction in the fee structure specific to mixed-use development, because you actually don't want to waive fees, because then that's a gift of public funds and then sets them into prevailing wages. So you actually have a separate fee structure that can be established for mixed-use development specifically. and then height increases and parking reductions. Those are the three main. There's nothing else in the last 10 years that this has been regularly discussed in my professional career here in California that there's ever been another one that's a major carrot for a developer that really says that this is a game changer. It's those three.
So is there any harm in uncrossing out the auto repair in B of 1444030? Jolie, I would appreciate it if you let me ask my questions. I don't.
I'm just saying that this has been discussed.
Yeah, but it has been discussed, but I'd like to
Let's
hear
have
from him.
Director Zorn's answer so we can move on.
Once again, I don't appreciate how I'm treated, especially from the city attorney. Thank you.
So maintenance and repair services is a permitted use in the commercial downtown zone. There's nothing that's harmful of leaving it in as an impact associated with the housing element. Other than the fact that that did not have council majority support at the last meeting, which means that we would have to reintroduce this ordinance and then set it again for a second hearing. So this would again delay it until at least the end of November. And there's other wheels in motion with other ordinances. Again, I would like to at least emphasize is that I don't really think that maintenance and repair services on First Street in the downtown intentionally was left, over the years as something that we want to retain and emphasize in our downtown. I regularly, actually, as the Development Services Director, get complaints about the specific property that is in question about retaining it, which is a specific benefit for one sole property in all of downtown. There's actually two gas stations that used to also have service stations. They have closed the service station component of both of their businesses, one of which has converted the service component of the establishment into a more expansed convenience store. So I don't fundamentally think that it's something that the community actually wants holistically. So if it's something that we need to explore bringing back in, integrating into as what would be typical practice in land use is for that to be served as a conditional use and not something that would be allowed by right, we can talk about that in future omnibus code cleanups for the city if it's something that we want to reconsider in zoning districts for downtown or throughout the city.
So I really want to thank you. I have one more question. I really want to thank you for being patient to answer these questions because we're passing this here tonight. There are many concerns by many residents, and I think it's important for them to understand what can and can't be done, why we're doing what we're doing. They didn't have any additional meetings. That's why I was asking if this could be done after the outreach meeting. And then my question to you is, so you're saying that if we were to undo anything or make any changes here tonight, so you're saying we can not absolutely change anything because whatever we change will bring it back to its first reading.
That's correct.
So thank you for that. I think we all need to understand that. And I think that's important for us to know moving forward.
Councilmember, can I check in with other colleagues?
Yes, please.
All right. I'm going to remind the public, we already took public comment on the consent items earlier in the meeting. I have no further questions. The Vice Mayor has his hand up. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, I'm willing to entertain the motion.
I move that the council adopt an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Los Altos, amending chapters 14.16, 14.18, 14.20, 14.22, 14.24, 14.40, 14.44, 14.48, 14.52, 14.54, 14.80 of the Los Altos Municipal Code to implement Program 3B, Program 3C, Program 3F, Program 3G, and Program 3N of the sixth cycle housing element update, and that we introduce by title only and waive second reading.
I will second the motion.
Councilmember Daley.
Yes.
Councilmember Fliger.
Yes.
Councilmember Liang.
Abstain.
Vice Mayor Weinberg.
Yes.
Mayor Meadows.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0 to 1 with Councilmember Liang abstained.
All right. So that brings us forward. Informational items we don't discuss, they're in the packet. Moving on to council reports and direction on future agenda items. Again, I'll ask my colleagues to do both in one fell swoop. Who would like to start? Vice Mayor, your hand is still up.
Sorry, that's a remnant from the last item. I have nothing to report.
Nothing to report. Okay. Councilmember Daley?
Nothing to report.
Okay. Councilmember Fliger?
Thank you, Mayor. I am sure I'm forgetting a meeting or two, but I did want to share with my colleagues that I, along with Councilmember Kavita Tanka, who's Los Altos Hills Council, and Kim Mosley, who is president of the Los Altos Chamber of Commerce, we're on our own, not using any city resources or have any expectations from our cities at this time, but we are exploring possibly establishing a sister city. It's a long process. We're learning about the process. We're having many conversations, and we're also making some connections. And so I wanted to make sure I shared this with council in the event you heard that we're asking about sister cities. It is not something that is ready for prime time, because how the process would work, if this is something that we believe we wanted to explore and move forward, I would definitely bring it back to council to see if there's support for moving forward. At the stage, it's clearly exploring the possibility and having conversations. So I just wanted to make sure I shared that with my colleagues.
Thank you. That's interesting. Did you have any future agenda items? No. Okay. Councilmember Liang?
Let's see, we all attended the League of Cities. Councilmember Fliger, Mayor Meadows, and I attended the League of Cities, League of California Cities.
You mean the Peninsula Division Mental Health Forum?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mental Health
Yes,
Forum.
yes, we did, which
Yeah.
was actually very good.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was to address the increase in mental health we're experiencing today, the importance of educating everyone on the use of 988, and letting everyone know that there are resources out there if you need help. So do not hesitate to use the 988 line. With the mental health crisis, it is important, and with all the celebrations of Compassion Week and importance of volunteering and being kind to one another, I would like to encourage that we host a compassion training event for the council and open it to all residents. So that's my ask for future agenda items. I also attended the Semidian Film Documentary event, $100 a day regarding those who are wrongly convicted. We're not doing enough, and not enough is being done to help those who are suffering from the injustice of our legal system and are incarcerated wrongly. I attended the Double Tent celebration in San Jose to highlight the National Day of the Republic of China. So thank you, Mayor, for that recognition. And then I would like to share that VTA board has successfully approved to have 200 transitional units at their Cerrone site for VTA. So that'll take 200 people off the street, and I'm pleased that they are moving in that direction. Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, good.
I
Good
did want to
update.
clarify that we have in our schedule that we are going to talk about dark skies, but I wanted to know which date that was coming before us, if I can get.
It's on the tentative.
Yeah, it's still tentative, so I just want to know, kind of like know when. Do we know?
While you're looking,
It says November 14th.
yeah.
Oh, it is?
it's
Okay,
on, yeah.
my thing doesn't say that, so.
It's on the informational item, the tentative calendar. Okay, so while you're looking, I'm going to start my update. There was, I attended, along with a lot of library volunteers, the county hosted a library volunteer event to recognize the strong support from our community for the library. I attended the Silicon Valley Business Journal Structures Award ceremony and brought home a very sharp, pointy crystal award for all electric building that we got from SVCE and Silicon Valley Business Journal. I think a number of us attended the Greentown event a weekend or so ago. I attended the Compassion Week kickoff on Saturday at Mountain View City Hall. We had our presentation for them today, but I attended the kickoff, which had an interesting panel of speakers. And this morning there was a Java with Josh in Coupa Cafe on El Camino, and it was packed with people. Very few of them from Los Altos, though. It was from his. It shows you how very broad his district is. There were people from up on Skyline and, all over. So there was quite a bit of information shared and questions asked. So for future agenda items, I think we talked about bringing back the sponsored events. I don't think it has to be at the next meeting, but that if there's council support, it sounded like there was interest. Again, it's not urgent because we passed the special events now, but to look at the sponsored would be good at some point. And then this is a question for city manager and city attorney. Do we want to talk about the Zoom commenting and some of the stuff that's going on in the Bay Area and what, if anything, we want to incorporate about how we do our public comment in regards to potential hate speech incursions into our city council meetings. So,
Mayor, I
yes.
believe the city attorney will send a privileged memo to
Okay.
council, and then you can make a determination at that point.
Okay, I think that sounds good, actually. So then we can decide whether to bring it up again after that. All right. Thank you very much. That's mine. Councilmember Daley.
I went to the Follies, and our mayor was awesome. She was an MC along with Congresswoman Eshoo, and absolutely stole the show.
Well, Congresswoman did. I had a cameo appearance, but anyway. So yes, that was an honor to share this stage with our Congresswoman. So thank you for mentioning that. And I think, has everyone gone? Oh, Councilmember Flagger.
I have gone, but I wanted to piggyback onto something Councilmember Lee Eng said on the mental health hotline, and this is for the city manager, because as we all attended the event, and one of the things that Supervisor Simidian encourages to get it out to the community. So is this something we want to ask our city manager to include in his weekly?
He's already gonna do it.
Okay, I just want to make sure that's happening. Thank you. That's it.
City manager is going to include it on what?
His weekly.
Oh, the weekly update. Okay, okay, all right. Okay, good. You've already got that. Perfect. And Vice Mayor, you already said you had nothing, but I'm going to check back again just in case something was brought to mind with the updates we've been doing.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just emphasize what Pete said. I was also at the Follies, and you were terrific. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So with that, I think, oh, no, staff, do you have any updates?
Just one real quick, Mayor. The Compassion Week event, city staff have been working, volunteering for many activities. Tomorrow afternoon, the city's executive team will be downtown picking up trash and debris. So that is the executive team's commitment to Compassion Week. I think we're done.
It looks that way. All right, so I'm going to adjourn this meeting. Thank you.